Wednesday show. Wednesday show. Wednesday show. Hello, everybody. We are currently doing an episode of the Wednesday show. I get distracted. So last week, if you joined us last week, we usually did live streams on here and Facebook at the exact same time, and we were having some technical difficulty on that streamer thing that I've been using. So last week we went to YouTube only. People said it worked okay, so hopefully it's still working okay for you guys. Let me know if we are having technical difficulties, not talking difficulties. But if we're having any technical difficulties on this side, then we can go back and try to do both Facebook and YouTube at the same time again. But I figure for the time being, we will attempt to just do YouTube and see how it goes. I wish I could bring the comments up too. Hey, Eric. Hey, Matt. How you guys doing? Just talking difficulties. Perfect. Okay. So today we are going to be continuing our deep dives of attractions that are closing up, because as if 2025, okay, guys, let's think about this here. You know what we're going to do before this is, by the way, we're going to do the deep dive in just a few minutes here. So if you're one of those people who are just joining us right now, hello, feel free to say hi in the chat room. But I was looking at this app that I use, Log Ride, which goes through and you can keep track of how many things you've done of everything. There's been 183 days so far in the year 2025, and I have been to a park 183 days of the year, naturally. But one of the sections is defunct attractions. I just started using this January 1st of this year. On here, I have had 6 defunct attractions that I've experienced this year. One of them was World of Color 1, the show. That there's World of Color still going on, but they switch out the theme all the time. I did that one time when I was out in California in January. The Red Car Trolley, which closed up while I was out there. I did that one twice. Forces of Nature by Anti-Gravity, which is over at Epcot. I did that one twice this year. Triceratops Spin, I did that 7 times before it closed up January 7th. It's Tough to Be a Bug. I did that 7 times before it closed in March. Muppet Vision 3D, I've done 27 times this year before that closed up. And now we're going to have a whole lot more of Tom Sawyer Island and the Riverboat joining that thing. But because of all these attractions closing, we've been doing a lot of deep dives about attractions that are not going to be around much longer. And tonight we're going to continue that. So tonight we're going to be going through and doing a deep dive on the Liberty Belle Riverboat before it closes up Sunday. Sunday's the last day that you can go over there. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go through the backstory, the history, everything, and talk all about it. Haircut at Magic Kingdom. I did get a haircut at Magic Kingdom, but it was like 2 weeks ago. So thanks for noticing last week. It was like 2 weeks ago, but thank you. Yes, I did get a haircut. I always get my haircut over at Main Street, USA. I'm still trying to play around with this stuff here too. Okay. All the colors. Get inspired for examples. I'll play a rhythm game without any sound. What? Hosting. So there's that thing with the super chats where it's like, oh, set a goal for yourself. And then it says, get inspired with ideas. And here's some of the ideas that I could do if we get 10 people who do a super chat in the next half hour. I'll stream again on Friday. Can't do that. I'm working. I'll play a rhythm game without any sound. Okay. Hosting a community gaming night. Get 1 extra hour of live streaming when we reach the goal. I'll do a stream where we explore more indie games. Got it. Okay. Yeah, we're not going to do that. If you want to leave a super chat, you can leave a super chat. If you don't want to leave a super chat, that's perfectly fine too. I'm still all for them relocating the riverboat to Port Orleans Riverside. Yes, I would love for it to go over to Port Orleans Riverside. I would love for it to go in front of Magic Kingdom. I would just love for the Liberty Belle Riverboat to still exist in some way, shape, or form. Okay, so let's get this party started. This is the 828th episode of the Wednesday show, and we're going to start it in 5, 4, 3, 2, Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 828th episode of the Wednesday Show. Today is July 2nd, 2025, and I am your host, as always, Brent Dodge. Hello. Today, we're going to be going through and doing a deep dive about the Liberty Belle Riverboat over at the Magic Kingdom. But, of course, before we get to that, let's talk about our news for the week. First off, thank you, everyone out there who's been joining us for our Saturday in the park. If you didn't already know, every single Saturday we do a live broadcast from someplace found throughout the Walt Disney World Resort. You just never know where we're going to be coming to you from. However, I do want to take a moment and apologize because this last week on the way to the park, my tire blew out on Herbie the Love Bug, and it took me about an hour to change it. And unfortunately, by the time I got to the park, I only had like 20 minutes in the park. And I'm not even exaggerating. It was like 20 minutes in the park before I had to head off to my job. So I do apologize to anyone who was like, well, he promised us he'd be here at 1 o'clock Eastern time on Saturdays. And I did make that promise. And then I completely failed in that promise because the roadway decided not to give you guys the broadcast that you all loved and deserved. So I do apologize that we were not there this past week, but we will be coming to you coming up in the very near future, aka Saturday. This Saturday we do have, I'm trying to think of which park we have. Oh, I know, I have a park reservation for Hollywood Studios right now. However, I am probably going to switch it over to the Magic Kingdom, and we'll probably do a broadcast from the Liberty Belle Riverboat and Tom Sawyer Island, or one or the other. I'm not sure exactly which one. So make sure you join us every single Saturday at 1 o'clock Eastern time for all of the Disney fun. You broke our hearts like you broke Brother Bear. I really wish I could. We got to figure out exactly how to move the comments to the chat. Can I pin message? Oh, look, I can do that, and then it pops up at the top, so then everyone can see it. That made me laugh. If you make me laugh, I'll throw yours at the top. Okay, so, and where was I going with this? Oh, as always, as we're going through here, if you guys have it so we get more subscribers, we will go into extra innings. Our current subscriber, 8,376 subscribers. So let's get that up to at least 8,300 or 8,000, not 300, 8,737 or so much more. So keep on sending your friends over to subscribe as well. Wait, what does this mean? Alex, how did you just get XP? It's got a little crown and it says number 1. Did I just miss something? I don't know what's going on. This new chat room is like, it's cool, but I'm not sure what's going on. Oh, wait. So, and of course, as always, tonight's episode is sponsored by our Patreon pals. If you're one of our Patreon pals out there, make sure to give us an oh yeah in the chat room so everyone knows who you are. Patreon pals. Okay, so tonight we're going to be going through and doing a deep dive about the Liberty Belle Riverboat. We're going to be talking about the history. We're going to be talking about the storyline. We're going to be going through and doing a walkthrough of the entire attraction to go through and figure everything else. I have no idea why I have XP. I didn't do anything. I don't know why you did it. I don't know why, but it's okay. Alex is currently in the lead, it says. Wait a minute. It has a thing up here that says top fans. And it says Alex has 75 XP now. Alex, make sure you're not paying for something. Are you giving me like $50 every time? I mean, if so, just keep on doing that. But that's weird. I am not sure. Here, let's go to our goal. Here, we'll do, because now I'm kind of curious too about this goal. And we will go on the Liberty Belle Saturday. We're going to do it no matter what. But I'm just kind of curious because this is associated with that too. Your goals live. Share with your. Okay, we're just playing around here. So I apologize, people, if things are weird, but because they're weird on my end. I'm just so used to how StreamYard looked and consider everything else. Okay, so tonight we're going to go through, we're going to do a deep dive about the Liberty Belle Riverboat. We're going to be talking about the history. We're going to be doing a walkthrough of both the boat and a walkthrough of the actual river itself. What I love most about rivers is you can't step in the same river twice. The water's always changing, always turning. Now, Pocahontas actually is going to have a little cameo tonight. In addition to Pocahontas having a cameo, we'll also have Davy Crockett, Tom Sawyer, Mark Twain, a president, and a whole lot more. Oh, you're number one because you bought a super chat before, I think. Okay, that kind of makes sense then. That might be what it is. I was because it's linked up together at the top for me, but it didn't explain why. Okay, so let's get this party started. Let's go all the way back to the Mickey Mouse Park. I know you're thinking, oh, Disneyland. No, we're going to talk about the Mickey Mouse Park. So if you remember, if we dust off our history books, boys and girls, you may have remembered that in this very podcast, multiple times, like literally like hundreds of times, we have talked about the idea of a Mickey Mouse Park. So in case you don't remember, or in case you didn't join us for one of those episodes, let's do a quick little refresher. Way back in the day, back in the late 1940s / early 1950s, Walt Disney was contemplating the idea of having a Mickey Mouse Park. And now the Mickey Mouse Park was not going to be Disneyland, but it was actually going to be a theme park that was found on the Walt Disney Studios lot. In this concept art, he had a few things that we all know and love today. We had things like a railroad going around the entire park. We all know that and love that. We had things like a hot air balloon that never came around. We had a haunted house. Obviously, we got the Haunted Mansion. And another one was a little island that was surrounded by water. And on that water was a riverboat. Now, this idea was this riverboat was going to be on the Mississippi River because obviously Walt Disney loved the concept of the Mississippi River. He grew up not too far away from it while living in Marceline, Missouri. So when he was going through and coming up with the idea of a Mickey Mouse Park, he said, I want a train and I want a steam engine. Of course, all this other stuff too. But those were two of the things that he really wanted to do. Now, Walt Disney, along with several of the people who grew up around that time period, did love the idea of steam engines. Steam engines were like the height of civilization. They were amazing things that could transport you from Illinois all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. And when people would take these boat rides all the way down, they would have it so they could see exotic places like Missouri. What? They could see places like Arkansas and Louisiana. So as they would go through and go on these lavish journeys, it was just one of those things that was very romanticized by people way back in the day. So when he wanted to have this Mickey Mouse Park, that was one of the things that he needed to have inside the park. Obviously, the Mickey Mouse Park did not happen, but a few years later, they came up with the concept of Disneyland. Now, in Disneyland, they also wanted to have it so there was going to be this riverboat cruise that people could go through and take all around the river of the Mississippi. But of course, they decided to evolve it a little bit more and call it the Rivers of America. So the Mark Twain Riverboat, as it's known over there, would take guests all around the Rivers of America, and everything was grand. Everything's great. Everything is grand. I've got the whole wide world in the palm of my hand. That's from the Muppets. But that's not why we're here. We're talking about the Liberty Bell Riverboat. So when they started to go through the concept of the Magic Kingdom and Walt Disney World, they wanted to have it there was going to be a few different things that they were going to focus on that were also successful over in Disneyland. One of them being the Rivers of America and the idea of having a riverboat that takes guests all around Tom Sawyer Island, or at this point, it was known as Tom Sawyer Island and the Big Island. So they would have it so there was going to be this riverboat, and it was going to be ready for opening day. And I know you're thinking, probably not. There's no way you can get a boat that big ready for opening day. And if you said that, you're right. Actually, it was not around on opening day. It did not open up until October 2nd, 1971. That's right. It was the first attraction to open after the park. And then the day after that was Peter Pan's Flight. Just a complete side note there. But they are two attractions that most people say that they are opening day attractions. But in reality, they were just a little late to the party because they were just not completely ready yet. So when they were going through and creating the Liberty Bell Riverboat for October 2nd in 1971, it was actually not known as the Liberty Bell Riverboat. And I know what you're thinking. What? How on earth can that be? Hey, we got a super chat. Thank you, Matt. I don't know what the super chat thing is. I'm still learning about all this, but hey, thank you. I do appreciate it. Okay. I need to just open up my book, and literally my book because I just want to make sure that there are two names that I'm getting correct in the right order as we go through this thing, because if I get them wrong, you guys are going to be really sad and really mad at me. Okay. So the Admiral Joe Fowler. A lot of people out there. Ashley, are you out there? Hello, Ashley. If Ashley is out there, give us an oh yeah as well, or maybe Alex, you can get the oh yeah for her. But people like Ashley actually used to work on the Admiral Joe Fowler, but not the one that was found at the Magic Kingdom. Actually, the one that would transport people between the Magic Kingdom and the Ticket and Transportation Center. And I know what you're thinking, but wait a minute. This has to be kind of confusing, because how on earth are we going to have it so you're talking about the Admiral Joe Fowler when you're talking about the Liberty Belle Riverboat, and then also talking about how it's over at the Magic Kingdom and Ticket Transportation Center? That's a great question, and I know why you're like, this seems confusing. Well, on opening day of the Magic Kingdom, actually for the first 25 years of the Magic Kingdom being open, the boat that would transfer people from the Main Street, or sorry, not from Main Street, from Magic Kingdom to the Ticket and Transportation Center were not known as the Admiral Joe Fowler. They were actually known as things like the Magic Kingdom 1 and the Magic Kingdom 2. Pretty nifty stuff. So the Admiral Joe Fowler, let's talk a little bit about it. So Admiral Joe Fowler was a designer. He was an Imagineer. He was a man who was also an admiral in the Army way back in the day. But when he was going through and working with the Walt Disney Company, he figured out exactly how the idea of a steam engine was going to be created. Now you have to remember, back in 1950, you're probably like, steam engines were all the rage. In fact, they were not at all. In fact, the first time that anywhere in America, that a steam engine had been built in over 50 years was at Disneyland for the Mark Twain. So 20 years later, the next steam engine was built for America, anywhere in America, and that would be the Admiral Joe Fowler over at the Magic Kingdom. Admiral Joe Fowler would help build both the one found over at the Disneyland and at the Magic Kingdom. One would be named the Mark Twain. The other one would be named after an Imagineer. Now, this is also kind of a weird thing, because back then, they were still doing a pretty good job of theming. They hadn't fully reached the level of theming that we all know and love today in the parks. However, if people were going into the Magic Kingdom and just kind of walking around, they may see something that says the Admiral Joe Fowler, and they would naturally think, who's that? Because Disney didn't have these history lessons. They didn't have the Wednesday show to actually educate people on exactly who these people were. So the Admiral Joe Fowler was named after Admiral Joe Fowler, who was an Imagineer and had a lot of design input over in both Disneyland and at the Magic Kingdom. Now flash forward a few years, because the Admiral Joe Fowler is a hopping place. If you are in the Magic Kingdom, one thing that you want to do is you want to go take a nice little river ride around the rivers of America on the Admiral Joe Fowler. It became so popular that in 1973, they decided, you know what we're going to do? We're going to open up a second boat. What? So now the rivers of America would have two giant ferry boats taking people around the rivers of America, and specifically around Tom Sawyer Island. Now, in 1973, we got our second ship, and the second ship was known as, and this is where I just want to make sure, the Richard F. Irvine. Now, the Richard F. Irvine might sound familiar to you, and it should, because the Richard F. Irvine is also the name of the ship that is found between the Magic Kingdom and the Ticket and Transportation Center still to this day. So both ships were having a grand old time going around the rivers of America for about 7 years. And then tragedy struck. On a dark, stormy night, things happened backstage at the Magic Kingdom. Except for it wasn't actually a dark and stormy night. It was just a regular old day. And the Admiral Joe Fowler broke. It just broke. It died. And they said, you know what? It's beyond repair. We're not going to fix it. We're just going to have one boat, because at this point, 7 years have gone by, and going around the rivers of America is not as exciting as it was back in 1971, 1972, eventually 1973, where they would have to open up a second riverboat as well. So they decided, we're just going to go about our day. We're going to have one boat, and we're going to have it so it's going to be the Richard Irvine. Now, as time would go on, in 1996, they decided that, a lot of people didn't really know exactly who Richard F. Irvine was, but we had this boat that's named after him that's going around the rivers of America every single day. People are like, I'm going to go on that Libertyville Riverboat, but we don't even, or actually the Liberty Square Riverboat, but we don't even know who this guy is. So they decided that they were going to change it to a pun named after something else that's found in Liberty Square, the Liberty Belle. But instead of being Liberty Belle, Bell, they would have it so it's the Liberty Belle, Belle. So the Liberty Belle Riverboat would now become home in Magic Kingdom. The other two boats that were found outside of the Magic Kingdom then would switch their names from Magic Kingdom 1 and Magic Kingdom 2 to the Richard F. Irvine and the Admiral Joe Fowler. So everything would get their names and everything would be happy in the world, except for the names of Magic Kingdom 1 and Magic Kingdom 2, which just were retired at that moment. So while we're talking about Liberty Belle, let's talk a little bit about Liberty Square and how this all fits in. Because if you ask the average Disney guest, hey, where is the Liberty Belle Riverboat located? Most people would probably say Frontierland because it goes around the rivers of America, and the rivers of America are technically Frontierland. However, the Liberty Belle Riverboat loads at Liberty Square, making it a attraction in Liberty Square, even though it's mainly in the area of Frontierland. So this is actually just one of two attractions that are found in the Magic Kingdom that are in two separate lands. The other one obviously is going to be the Walt Disney Railroad. Anyone else screen freezing? Eric wants to know. I hope not. Let me know as well, because I just want to make sure that everything's going okay here. Let me just make a really weird face just in case. Just in case it freezes at that moment. Just make it a little bit more. Oh, wait. So we have now reached the name, the Liberty Belle Riverboat. Let's talk a little bit about the rivers of America and how the rivers of America became the rivers of America. Now, when they were going through and creating specifically Disneyland, they decided to just name it the Rivers of America and have it so that was just a grand old name. But when they were going through and trying to figure out what they were going to do with the Magic Kingdom, they said, you know what, we can have it so the Rivers of America can tie Liberty Square and Frontierland together in a very unique way. So while guests are walking from Liberty Square into Frontierland, you go over like a little bridge. And most people don't realize it's actually a little bridge. But while you're going over this little bridge, there's a little creek that's going underneath it. And when I say a little creek, I mean like it's a stream of water, like yay big. And that little water just goes underneath you and it goes into the Rivers of America. This is known as the Little Mississippi, because crossing this, you are going from the Liberty Square times of, you know, the eastern United States into the Old West of Frontierland with, you know, everything to the west of the Mississippi River. So it's a nice little nod. So the Rivers of America are tied in with all the different rivers all around America. And that is why we are going to be taking a trip around the Rivers of America. I feel like I'm forgetting something. But if you guys have any questions, just start throwing the questions to the comments and we're going to go through and answer your questions as we go through here as well. But let's continue going on here. So we're going to do a little walkthrough of the boat. We're going to do a little walkthrough of the Rivers of America, and then we're going to go to your questions as well here. So let's start off with the walkthrough of the boat. Now the boat is 3 different levels. There is the bottom level. In the bottom level, you got like all the mechanical things. If you go down there, I personally really like being on the bottom level. It's one of my favorite spots. Besides the fact that you're close to the exit, which is like a little bonus, it also has it so you can look at like the steam engine in the back. You can see all the different things moving around and how they actually propel the things forward. On the middle level, it's more of the relaxing atmosphere. While you're up there, you can be right above the paddle on the back of the ship. You can also have it so you can go into the sitting room. Now, inside the sitting room, we've got several different riverboats on pictures on the walls, kind of showing what the Mississippi River may have looked like back in the day. And then we got some books that are along the way. And overall, everything's just kind of themed around the idea of if you want to be on a riverboat and read about a riverboat or look at things that are about riverboats, we got the room for you. If you go to the top level, this is where things get very interesting. And I know what you're thinking. I've been at the top level. It's not very interesting. You're just out in the sun. You're burning away. That is true. However, let's talk a little bit about the secret room. What? Okay, so if you go to the top floor, actually, even before you get to the top floor, before you even get on the boat, sometimes, not all the time, sometimes you can go up to the cast members and say, hey, listen, I heard that you can go up to the wheelhouse and drive the boat. Is this still a thing? It might not be a thing anymore. So just giving you guys a heads up, if you're trying to go for the next 5 days, it probably is not a thing. However, when I was writing my book, A Closer Look at the Magic Kingdom's Liberty Square, it still was a thing at that point. And I went up to them and I said, hey, listen, I've heard that I can go up there. Is there any way that I can go up there? And they said, no. And I said, pretty please. And they said, okay. So, wait, Eric, Eric, I think you just put too much in there. Eric, text me. Eric, I think you just hit the wrong button. I just want to say you hit the wrong button for sure. Does that count as 10 super chats? I mean, I appreciate it if you did mean to do that, but oh my gosh. Eric, Shelley's going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. Let's, I'm going to, Eric, you and I are going to talk after the chat room. Okay. So, before, but if you meant that, thank you. I appreciate it. But at the same time, I'm going to kill you. But at the same time, you need $100 on YouTube. Yeah, $10 is a super chat. So I don't know what you just did, but we're gonna figure this out. Okay, so anyways, oh my gosh, Eric, I just had like a little mini heart attack when that popped up. We're gonna talk later. And we're gonna figure things out on how I get you some money back because I don't think you meant to do that at all. Okay, where was I even at? Oh, the top. Okay. So if you go up there, when I went up there, I did a tour with the person who was riding the boat, and they let you actually go through and steer. Number one, yes, it is on a track. The entire ride is on a track. But let's talk a little bit about the cabin, because the cabin actually has some very interesting things inside that most people don't really realize that are up there. Number one, if you are in there, there's like a little captain's bed, because that's where the bed or the captain would have actually been sleeping at night. And then on top of that, we have a picture of James Monroe. And I know what you're thinking, James Monroe, that name sounds familiar. Maybe I should know who he is. Yes, you should. So James Monroe was the president of the United States from 1813. I want to say it. Let me just check. No, 1817 to 1825. And this president, the only reason he had no affiliation with riverboats, he had no affiliations with pretty much anything with riverboats, but it is just helping us put the time period of we are on a river of America sometime between the years of 1817 and 1825. That is literally the only reason that we've got a picture of him up there, because that is when he was president, and it's just helping us set the timeline of exactly when things were happening. Okay, so in addition to that, there is the steering wheel that you can go through and you can steer. I do have a picture of myself. I actually had someone who the other day wrote to me and they said, oh man, you missed the greatest thing that you could have ever done, because did you know that people can actually steer up there? And I was like, please. And I sent them this picture right here. So this is me at the year when I was writing the book, and literally a lot of the fun facts about the Liberty Belle Riverboat that are both in my book and we're going to be talking about tonight were told to me by the cast members while we were up there and getting this little tour. So let's do the tour. While we were going through and doing the tour of the Liberty Belle Riverboat, or while we're on the Rivers of America, we are going through and we are being narrated by two. No, we're not being narrated, but the ship is being narrated by two different people. Now, both these people are legendary people in the world. One of them is a young buck by the name of Sam Clemens, and the other one is a man whose name is Horace Bixby. Now, Horace Bixby is the captain up here in the captain's deck. And Horace Bixby is going to be the guy who's going to go through and be our main narrator, but he's also brought a young guy named Sam Clemens on board because it's going to be Sam Clemens' 100th trip down the rivers of America that day. What? In your face, Sam Clemens. I know for a fact I've done that more than 100 times, so I've done more than him. So while we were going through, you might be thinking, who on earth is Sam Clemens? Who on earth is Horace Bixby? And yes, those are both legitimate questions, and yes, we're going to answer them right now. Samuel Clemens, or Samuel Langhorne Clemens, as more people would probably know him for, is the man who penned two great American novels. Actually, he penned more than just two, but his two most famous works are books called The Adventures of Tom Sawyer and The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, Sam Clemens didn't write that. That was Mark Twain. Well, Mark Twain was a pen name. Sam Clemens was his real name. So Sam Clemens is playing the role of Mark Twain it's not actual Sam Clemens. It's an actor playing Sam Clemens who's also Mark Twain. It's confusing, but ignore that. Now, when Samuel Clemens, or Mark Twain, however you want to know him as, was growing up, Sam Clemens went to the Mississippi River quite often, and he would look at the ferry boats sailing up and down the river. And he was fascinated. It encouraged him to write things like The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn, but he also longed one day to be a captain on one of these boats. So Sam Clemens, around the turn of the century, would be going through and dreaming of being on one of these boats, piloting one of these boats, and while he was going through and trying to make his dreams come true, he started to become friends with different people who worked on the boats. One of them was a captain of a ship, and his name was, you guessed it, Horace Bixby. So Horace Bixby is here on this boat piloting with Samuel Clemens, who he is training to be a great riverboat pilot. And then instead, he decided to get into the author world. It doesn't pay very well. Trust me, I know. Okay, so as they are going through and having a grand old time, we are going to be taking a tour around the entire island. Now, while we go through, we're going to talk a little bit about it because there's a few different things that are on the narration that have switched throughout the years. Obviously, when you think about it, at one point before 1992, there was no Splash Mountain. So they didn't have any narration about Splash Mountain. Splash Mountain came, they added narration. Splash Mountain went away, they took away the narration. Tiana's Bayou Adventure came, they put in narration. Tiana's Bayou Adventure still there. That's the end of that story. Going over to Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, prior to 1980, there was no Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. So before that, we had no narration about that area. And then eventually we got it. As we continue going through, there's going to be another two that we're going to talk about, and those two have some very interesting stories as well, but we're going to get to that in just a few minutes. So while we're going through, they start by pointing out the different things that are on the side of the ship. Obviously, Frontierland's going to be the first one. While they talk about Frontierland, they talk about how it's filled with gold prospectors. Obviously, people are going to be heading over to Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. Visitors, aka all the guests that are just walking around the area, and a whole lot of other people that are just kind of enjoying the time of Frontierland. It is a rustic old village, as they say, but overall, it's a good old time. Then they start to point out Tom Sawyer Island on the other side. While they're talking about Tom Sawyer Island, Samuel Clemens talks about how it reminds him of a boy from his childhood. And then he starts talking about Huckleberry Finn, and he says, I always did like Huck. He could swear just marvelously. As we go through, Sam Clemens begins to start to drop famous sayings that Mark Twain had penned throughout all of his life. He has things like, I was born humble, but fortunately it wore off. So as we go through, we'll kind of point out a few of those different things, but we're not going to completely focus on those things. So as we go through, they start to tell us different fun facts. Back in the day, one of my favorite things was when you went past Splash Mountain, they would talk about how there used to be a dam up at the top there, and all of a sudden the water shot through, and people have been taking rides down the logs ever since. So it kind of gives us a unique backstory about Splash Mountain that you don't really get anywhere else. Then when we got over to Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, they would talk about how it. Well, we're gonna get there in just a second. Let's talk a little bit about what they say about Tom Sawyer Island. So while we go through and they're talking about Tom Sawyer Island, Samuel Clemens talks about how it reminds him of his childhood and about the island that he used to go to as a kid. And he says, lots of fun, lots of adventure if you knew where to look. And we knew where to look. And this is just paying again tribute to the fact that he is the author of Tom Sawyer Island, or not Tom Sawyer Island, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. And because of that, we have the inspiration right there going forward about everything else. All right, so continuing on our journey, we eventually get to Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. While we talk about Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, they talk about how there was some ancient Native Americans that were there, and they named it after the way that they named it Big Thunder Mountain after the way that the rains hit the ground and echo through, making the thunderous sounds. And then the name continued to stick after the gold miners came in, because now the idea of thunder was being made by dynamite blowing up all around the mountain. As we continue going along the way, we see Beacon Joe. Now, Beacon Joe is one of those people that most people have probably seen, and they know him from different things. They just don't know why they know him from different things. If you've been to Disneyland, if you have been to Walt Disney World, if you've been to Disneyland Paris, if you've been to Tokyo Disney, if you've been to Hong Kong Disney, Beacon Joe makes an appearance at all 5 spots. Beacon Joe doesn't always look the same, but Beacon Joe is always Beacon Joe. Beacon Joe has actually had it so he's been in these different locations, not always at the Rivers of America, but sometimes at the Rivers of America, and helping play the part of a person who would put beacons down to help guide people along the river. So in this instance, Beacon Joe's out there. He's putting different beacons down to have it so people are guiding through the river. But actually, you know what? Before we get to that, let's talk about how Beacon Joe got his story originated. So back in the late 1960s, Disney was working on a few different projects. Obviously, they were working on things like New Orleans Square. They were working on things like the Haunted Mansion, and they were also working on something called Pirates of the Caribbean. Now, the very first scene of Pirates of the Caribbean, you're on your little riverboat. On the right-hand side, we've got a nice luxury restaurant with a Monte Cristo that's to die for. On our left-hand side, though, you can start hearing the song of "Oh, Susanna, oh, don't you cry for me." Except for it's not played that way. It's just played on a banjo, very, very slowly, but it is. Boom, 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 boom. And while it plays, we are going through the bayou. And while we're going through the bayou, we just have this man who's sitting on a porch, rocking back and forth. And that is the original Beacon Joe. Now, the Imagineers like the idea of Beacon Joe being this guy who's just kind of hanging out on the bayou and hanging out on the river. And they decided that the best thing they could do is also bring him over here to the Magic Kingdom and put him at the Alligator Swamp. Now, at the Alligator Swamp, he's sitting there, and next to him, we have a dog. The dog is watching fish jump out of the water. And then if you actually look behind him, you can actually find some alligators as well, because that is the Alligator Swamp. Now, as the story goes, Beacon Joe is out there, and he is putting all the different beacons around the river for us to be guided through and have it so everything goes perfectly and smoothly, so we do not crash into any shores. Now, that's pretty cool, but there are going to be 7 different beacon points along the way. All 7 of them, with the exception of the last one, pay tribute to different things that are found around the river, kind of giving us this idea that while you walk through, you can see these things that are like, you know, like deer crossing point. There's some deer that are right there. But when you get to the last one, it is called Howling Dog Bend, and we're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. So someone please just remind me when we get to that point to go through and talk about it. Hi, Jim. Hi. Oh, Jim. So I don't know how, but Jim just passed. Jim just put down hi a bunch of times, and he's got XP, and he has now passed up Alex in the top fan spot. And I don't understand this XP thing at all. We're learning as we go through here. and I'm still trying to figure out what Eric did. Oh my gosh. This is just absolutely crazy. Oh, wait. Let's continue. Oh, it says the goal ends in 15 minutes. Oh, wait. let's continue here because I'm just getting very confused by this. I don't know who Jim is, but Jim's here and he says hi about 10 times. So hello, Jim. It's nice to meet you. So So as we go past Beacon Joe, on the left-hand side, we've got a few different huts. Now, these different huts, as we go through, Horace Bixby points out that is from the Powhatan tribe. And I know you're thinking the Powhatan tribe sounds like a very familiar tribe of Native American Indians that we may know, we may not know, but there is a reason that you may know them. So back in 1995, prior to 1995, this was not there. You would just continue going down, and there was just a few little trees there, and that was about it. There was not much to actually look at in this part of the river cruise. But in 1995, Disney released a brand new film called Pocahontas. In Pocahontas is actually part of the Powhatan tribe, and because of that, they decided to put a few of the huts that were similar to the huts that were found in the film, and they would put them along the river as well. And when they would put them along the river, they would have it so that would be paying tribute to the film Pocahontas and hoping that people would make the association of Pocahontas equals this tribe that is found now on the rivers of America. Yes, it was a little easier to understand back in the day because if you would go on this portion of the Walt Disney World Railroad when you passed it, you would actually start to hear Colors of the Wind being played. So if you were on the Walt Disney World Railroad, it made a little bit more sense. Here, they just said the name of the tribe. So unless you were really paid attention while watching the film, it didn't make much sense at all to most people. Now, as we continue going on, we will see another tribe with different teepees there, along with babies and horses and dogs and a lot of really cool audio animatronics over here. But before you get to that, there is something that I love to point out to people that most people just never really pay attention to. And it's not something that you can see, but it's something that you can hear instead. So as you go between the huts and behind the next tribe, you can hear the horn whistle of the Liberty Bell Riverboat do one long blast, followed by one short one. Now, this is a notice to the people back at Liberty Square that the boat is halfway through the journey. All right, have a good night, Matt. This is a nod that they are halfway through the journey. So when you hear the long whistle, followed by the short whistle, you are actually letting the people know in Liberty Square, hey, we're halfway done. We are on our way back to the shore. And I know what you're thinking. That seems kind of necessary, but not really necessary. And I 100% agree with you. This whistle was not around on opening day. In fact, the first 2 years that the Liberty Bell Riverboat, or at that point, the Admiral Joe Fowler, was around, this was not a thing. However, when the Richard F. Irvine was added onto the Liberty Bell Riverboat line, or to the Rivers of America line, they decided to add this because in order to load and unload people, they all loaded and unloaded at the same dock. So this is actually a nod to the people who are loading the next boat that, hey, by the way, you better finish loading those people because we're on the way back. We're halfway through the journey and you need to depart sometime in the very, very, very near future. Otherwise, we're going to crash into you. So this is a warning. And after 1980, when the Admiral Joe Fowler disappeared, they decided to just keep it because that was just part of the training ritual. So the only reason this is still around is just due to the fact that they said, hey, we were already training it. We just kind of forgot to stop training it because it was just part of the thing that we already did. That was one of the stories that the drivers were telling me when I was up in the thing driving it, and I was like, oh, that's fascinating. I really think it's a fascinating thing that most people don't really pay attention to, but I think it's just a really cool little detail. Okay, so we go past the Indians, and then on the top of the hill, we have an ancient Indian burial ground, and then we get to a moment where Horace Bixby and Sam Clemens are talking, and Sam Clemens says a line that is so true, especially now with this entire area closing up. He says something down the lines of, you know, in my opinion, there's a whole lot less frontier and a whole lot more civilization these days, as an entire section of Frontierland will be closed for a thing that focuses completely on cars that are civilization. And I think it's like the most appropriate line for this entire attraction. But we're not done with this thing yet, so let's keep on going. While we continue going through, start throwing your questions in because we're almost done with our tour around the river. So our next stop that we're going to take is on the right-hand side. You will find the cave-in. Now, the cave-in did used to say the cave-in. Now it just says nothing. It's been old and worn off paint and all that other fun stuff. But the cave-in is a spot where Horace Bixby warns everyone that this is going to be the spot. If we're going to find river pirates, this is where they're going to be. Now, inside here, you can hear a bunch of river pirates. They're making a lot of different noise. They're making a ruckus. And this is actually a nod to a few different things. One, actual real-life events were the inspiration for this. Two, a TV show / movie that was inspired by those real-life events, known as Davy Crockett and the River Pirates. And three, we'll get into it. But let's talk a little bit about the real events that happened here. So in real life, there was a man whose name was Davy Crockett, and there was also a man whose name was Mike Fink. Both of these characters, or both these men, have been portrayed as characters in the Disney universe to the point that a lot of people think that Davy Crockett is just a made-up person that the Walt Disney Company made up back in the 1950s to make a little bit of money. But in reality, he was a real man who they decided to do a series off of to make a little money. Mike Fink is the exact same way. Mike Fink was a character found in the Davy Crockett series, and in it, him and Davy Crockett team up to go against some river pirates. The river pirates were actual river pirates in the 1800s. If you were going up and down the Mississippi River, it was one of those things that just happened to happen quite often. You would have a nice, luxurious riverboat, maybe the Liberty Belle Riverboat. You'd be going down the river, just enjoying your thing, saying, "Oh, my pearls." And while you're going through and showing off your lavish, extravagant display of clothing, some river pirates would pull up on these little keelboats. They would jump on and they would rob people, and they would take their stuff and go off and make their way down into little caves, much like the cave-in found here. So when they're going through and talking about the cave-in is based off of little caved rocks that were found along the Mississippi River that pirates would hide in before they would go through and rob people. Now, there's a few other different things that we should be pointing out in this area, but we're not going to. No, we're going to. Don't worry. So, number one, if you look at the back area behind the cave on the right-hand side, you can find some clothes that are hanging off there. And I know what you're probably thinking, because I was thinking it too. Those clothes look awfully familiar, but I cannot put my finger on how I know them. Well, guess what? I'm here to tell you how you know them. Because, yes, they do look very familiar. In fact, if you've ever been to the Magic Kingdom, and if you're on the Liberty Belle Riverboat, you've been to the Magic Kingdom, there's a very high chance that you've seen these clothes before, and they should look familiar to you, because these outfits that are found here hanging, being dried, are the actual costumes that cast members at Pirates of the Caribbean wear over at Pirates of the Caribbean. So if you look at the outfits there, they are the exact same shirts, the same pants, the same socks that the cast members at Pirates of the Caribbean wear. So if you were to go down to the area where the cast members clock in and get their things, they took those, they hung them here to kind of fit in with the times. In fact, every time that the Pirates of the Caribbean cast members would go through and switch their outfits, like if the outfits they're wearing in 1973 when it opened up switched in 1982, the clothes that are found out there are also switched. So they are always matching whatever the current Pirates of the Caribbean cast members would be wearing on that specific day. Unfortunately, they'll never switch again. Below that, on the river, is something else that needs to be noted. And I also think, I don't know where this is going to go, but I'm very, very, very distraught about this. But we're going to talk about it for just a minute here. So here you can find a boat. And the boat is a keelboat. And I know you're thinking, what's a keelboat? Well, it's the thing that's right there. So the keelboat is a different type of boat that used to be found at the Magic Kingdom on the Rivers of America. There used to be multiple boats that would sail around the Rivers of America. You've got, obviously, the Tom Sawyer rafts, and we've got the Liberty Belle Riverboat. Those are the ones that still exist until this coming up Monday, when they're just completely taken away forever. It's going to break my heart. In addition to that, we used to have the Davy Crockett Explorer canoes where people could go through. They could take a canoe ride all around the rivers of America. And our final one was Mike Fink's keelboats. Mike Fink being the man that we just talked about that would go through and join up with Davy Crockett to attack the river pirates and Davy Crockett on the river pirates. Now, Mike Fink's keelboats were these keelboats that would take people around the island. There were a few different boats that would take you through. There was like 4 or 5 of them, maybe 3 or 4, I want to say. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it's 3 or 4. And these 3 or 4 boats would take people around the island. They would bring them back. There was no safety whatsoever. If you go back and watch old footage of Walt Disney World, people are literally like hanging off the edge about to fall into the river. However, when that attraction would close up in the late 1990s / early 2000s, I want to say it was, here, we got a book right here. We can literally look inside my book. 2001, April 29th, 2001. When that attraction would close up, 2 of the keelboats would still be within guest view. One of them would be found here on the Rivers of America, and the other one would be found over at Castaway Cay. So if you would go to Castaway Cay still to this day, aka the Disney Cruise Line's personal island, private island. When you're out there, you can go snorkeling, and while you're snorkeling, there are a few different things you can find out there. One of them is a 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea ship that used to be found here at Magic Kingdom as well. Another one is the keelboat that was found for Mike Fink's keelboats. So after Sunday, we will only have one of them that can be found by guests with their actual eyes, and that's going to be the one that's found over at Castaway Cay. So if you want to see a keelboat, that's the only way to do it from now on. So you've got that, you've got the keelboats, we've got the cave-in, a lot of history in just a small little portion that most people just don't really pay attention to. As we continue going through, we have Fort Langhorne on the right-hand side. Again, Langhorne being named after Sam Clemens, one of the narrators of the entire cruise. And then we get to Howling Bend Beacon. Now, as we were talking about earlier, we had Beacon Joe, and he lays out all the different beacons, and each one of them deals with something that you can find along the cruise. However, this one is something that you can hear and not see. So while we're getting to this point of our trip around the Rivers of America, you can hear, you can't hear it now, but while you're there, you can actually hear a dog howling or a wolf howling. And this is actually part of the Haunted Mansion queue, the Haunted Mansion being right around the corner. So to pay tribute to the dog that is howling, they decided to name this the Howling Dog Bend of the river. So when you go around the corner, then we've got the Haunted Mansion right there. They talk a little bit about the Haunted Mansion, and they've got a few, there's been so many different stories about the Haunted Mansion that have been told. My favorite one that's ever been told is inside of my book right here. I relate a story that was told to me by a cast member when I first became a cast member way back in the year 2004. But one of the stories is the one that's found here, and it is this mansion was built on an old ancient burial ground, and now the people there see spirits, and they go, I think the ones there are the ones who are filled with spirits, if you ask me. And they got proof, 100 proof. Just a little nod to them being alcoholics. And then we continue going down. As we go down, there's a little dock before we get to our main dock. The little dock here is actually I was gonna say he's one of the 7 tourists, the little dock, but no, it's just a little dock that guests used to be able to board the Mike Fink's keelboats at. So if you were to go to the Mike Fink keelboats from the 70s all the way up until 2001, this is where you would go through and actually board the boat to take a ride around Tom Sawyer Island, around Tom Sawyer Island. Then we make our way to our final resting place, and the final resting place of this evening, and that is going to be back at Liberty Square at our dock. Now, there's a few different things that I'd like to point out to people. If you are on the Liberty Belle Riverboat anytime between now and the last day, which is on Sunday, number one, if you're trying to get off the boat, don't get off the boat where everyone thinks you get off the boat. The exit of the boat is on the back part of the boat. It's not on the middle part of the boat. So you go down the stairs, the bottom stairs, and then everyone goes to the middle section. It's on the far left. I'm the first person off that boat literally every single time because I know where to get off. And everyone else is like in a massive group of people waiting behind a thing that will not open. And every time it just cracks me up. Number two is more of a fun find. On the left-hand side, there is a thing that says the Calhoun Pump Company, number 87, I want to say, 27, 26, 26. I'm almost positive it's 26. This is actually a nod to the company that helped them with the engineering of the Liberty Belle Riverboat. So if you know anything about cars, like I do not, I know I've got Herbie the Love Bug. I know he's a Volkswagen Beetle, and that's about all I really know about cars. I'm not a car person whatsoever. However, there is a company called the Calhoun Company, and the Calhoun Company helped Disney create the engine specifically for the Liberty Belle Riverboat. And to pay tribute to that company, there is just a little crate there that says the Calhoun Pump Company, number 26. I want to say it's 26. I'll have to check tomorrow. And then you get off the boat and you go to Liberty Square and everything is grand because it's still there. It's still there till Sunday. But that is our tour, people. That is our long tour. I'm trying to think of there being any other little fun finds or history that we want to talk about here. If you guys have any questions, start throwing those questions into the comments right now. We're going to go through and answer your questions. But, it's in my book too. In 2009, yeah, right there. For a short period, let's just read right from it. For a short period of time in 2009, the Liberty Square Riverboat was transformed to host the show Tiana's Showboat Jubilee in celebration of the release of The Princess and the Frog. Guests were chosen to be part of the show, which featured Tiana, Lewis, and even Dr. Facilier. After the film was released, the Riverboat returned to its regular operations. I actually had the opportunity to do that back in 2009. I had done enough things in the past where I kind of had an idea of where you would be able to find these people. We're, walking around and choosing different people for the thing. And I went through and I kind of just went, I found a person, I started talking to them and they said, hey, would you like to be part of the show? I said, I would love to be part of the show. And what they would do is they would bring you on, they would give you some streamers, you would wave the streamers around, and they had it so Tiana was on the boat with you, Lewis was on the boat with you, Naveen was on the boat with you, and then afterwards you got to have a private meet and greet with them while you were on the back part of the island. And then once you started coming back within sight lines of guests who were, watching the show, then you had to start going back and dancing again. So it's pretty cool. Is anyone else getting ants interrupting? That is probably because we're on YouTube now, opposed to the other one. So when I post any video on YouTube, it just automatically has it so it's got ads in there because that's how I get paid. So I wasn't sure. I guess that's how it does it on YouTube Live too. So I apologize if it's, but hopefully you're watching some good ads. And if you watch the whole ad, I get like $1. So yeah, and then I can retire from my job and be happy forever. Yay. All right, does anyone else out there have any questions before we wrap up for this evening? Anyone? Bueller? I'm sure there's probably a way for me to be able to deactivate the ads beforehand and then re-put them in after it's live. I'm not sure. I'll have to try to figure it out. We're new to this thing. I think we're going to step away from StreamYard though with the Facebook and the YouTube because it was more of a hassle. It actually cost me more than I was making on the Wednesday show. I was just trying to make it the StreamYard thing, the StreamYard app was costing me, like, I can't even remember how much money it was, but it's every month I have to pay a fee to have it so it would stream on two different things. And there was one time I was like looking to see how much money I made on the Wednesday show compared to how much I paid for that. And I was like, oh, I'm losing money for doing the Wednesday show because I'm using StreamYard. So I'm kind of thinking that this might be the way to go. It's just on YouTube. So I do apologize if there's ads every now and then, but at the same time, it's, it's YouTube. That is how I make my money. I don't make a lot of money from YouTube, but at the same time, that is how I make my money. So I do apologize if it is a little bit of an inconvenience, but you can skip the ad. I won't make as much, but you can skip the ad and I'm not going to be upset with you. I'll never know, actually. So unless you tell me, Oh, and Christine just told me. So you don't have to tell me that you're skipping the ads. I'll never know. But yeah. Okay, so we are going to be wrapping up this episode right here. I hope you guys enjoyed. I had a grand old time. I really truly love the Liberty Belle Riverboat. If you want to read more about it, it's in my book, A Closer Look at the Magic Kingdom of Liberty Square. We got physical copies. We also have it over on Kindle as well. So if you haven't ever read that book, it's got let's see how long the chapter this one is. I feel like this is not a long chapter. It starts on page 94 and it ends on page 94. No, that'd be funny though. And it ends on page 103. So it's about 10 pages long of Liberty Belle Riverboat goodness. But yeah, I'm bummed. This is the last Wednesday show we'll ever have where we have the Rivers of America and the Liberty Belle Riverboat and Tom Sawyer Island still existing. So it's the whole year has been rough with closings. Like it's really been a rough year. Like a dog, rough. And I am going to be going back to Magic Kingdom tomorrow, Epcot on Friday because it's 4th of July and I love watching the Voice of Liberty concert. And then I never go to Magic Kingdom on the days that I work, but I work Saturday and Sunday, and I'm tempted for Saturday and Sunday to go to Magic Kingdom, just so I can get one last trip over to Tom Sawyer Island and one last trip around the Rivers of America on the Liberty Belle Riverboat. But I love them both a lot. I really love Tom Sawyer Island. As much as I apologize to the Liberty Belle Riverboat if after you retire on Sunday you're watching this podcast and you're like, hey, why didn't you like me? I still love you. I just love Tom Sawyer Island more, and I'm gonna miss both of them. It's gonna be a tough one. It really is gonna be a tough week. It's been a tough year between Muppet Vision 3D. So a few of the things that I just have grown up with at Disney from my childhood that I just have still loved to this day is everything. But I had to narrow it down a little bit. Muppet Vision 3D, I've always loved, and Tom Sawyer Island, I've always loved Tom Sawyer Island. I've been to Tom Sawyer Island literally. I would be shocked if it's less than 1,000 times. I would be shocked if it was less than 1,000 times. I've always gone to Tom Sawyer Island at least once a week. Sometimes every other week, but it's typically been once a week for years. And then, yeah, it's gonna be fun. On my college program, I used to always go over there to Aunt Polly's and get some ice cream and just sit back in the rocking chair, rock back and forth, and yeah, we'll see. I'm the worst part about this week is the fact that I know there's going to be so many people who are not fans of these things, but they need to go on because it's the last day. While people like me who have been going on them for years are like, just give me some peace and quiet to say my goodbyes. All right, but we're going to be wrapping up this episode right here. As always, tonight's episode is sponsored by our Patreon pals. Thank you to our Patreon pals out there. I appreciate all of you. If you're one of them, give us an oh yeah in the chat room. As always, remember that anything can happen if you let it. Until next time, oh, it's over here. I usually go like that, and then I put my hand up here because that's where it is on to end the thing on StreamYard, but it's down here. Until next time, have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye. Goodbye now. Goodbye. Bye-bye now. Goodbye. Bye-bye now. Are they gone? Are they gone? Oh, good. My cheeks are just killing me. I can't stand this kind of pressure.